Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 232 of the Well Done Life podcast. And hello, welcome back to episode 232 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, how are you? Welcome. I hope that you will stay for a very long time and bring friends. If you've been here before, you guys know the deal. I love you deep. Thank you so much for continuing to rock with me. Of course, I definitely want you to continue staying around and continue bringing friends and continue to share and grow with me. I wouldn't be here without you, and so I'm just very thankful. So before we get started with this week's episode, I want to make sure that I'm foundational. A lot of you who have been here before, you guys probably could recite this with me. I pretty much really believe in making sure that we set up this time together like we are creating a house, and because it's a safe space in my opinion. And so with that, I want to make sure that our house is built on two very important things, and that is clarity and love. Clarity is really straightforward. I just like to make sure that you understand that the Well Done Life is a brand that I created for women because I believe in the power of women. I really believe in creating spaces where women can feel seen by sharing experiences. That's part of my testimony. I made a promise to God a long time ago that if He spared me, if He helped me through when I was at my rock bottom, that I wouldn't hide the good and the bad of the journey, because I believe in the power of connectivity through conversation. There's so much that you can learn about somebody just by having a conversation. So I hope that by me sharing my journey, my conversation, my life with you, as well as spotlighting the other women, that you will find inspiration to see that there is nothing that you can't overcome. That, yeah, you think something is so bad, there is somebody else who has gone through it and survived it. And that there's an opportunity for you to learn from them. There's an opportunity for you to avoid the pitfalls, because that's some of the other reason why we have to do this as well. It's not just so that you can learn from somebody else's struggle. So that maybe if you are on the path to making certain decisions, you can think about them. And if they're going to lead you into a path that is not going to be beneficial to you, you can make another choice. I mean, we want to see everybody win here. So that is why I created this space. And it will always be a space, I hope, for where we can come together and, like I said, just share the good, the bad, the ugly of our journeys, and really be glorified and glorify each other and magnify how God has been really good in our lives and moved us through so many different situations and is still allowing us to be here. So welcome. And then I'm going to be honest, that kind of leads me right into my second one, because it's the most important thing to me, and that is love. Everything that we do in this space is always going to be rooted in love. And I hope that how I come across to you, you can feel the love in me, that you can feel my passion and conviction for what we're doing here. And so as a part of my love and my thoughts and my prayers are something that I like to share with you. It's very important to me every week before we dive into whole new topics that I share prayers. And so this week, which I'm pretty much standing on all the time, I think I'm going to stand on the power of peace, the prayer of peace for a long time to come. So I need to just probably stop saying this week. It's just, all right, guys, we are standing on peace. Yes, we are standing on peace. I am praying that this week that you take a moment to breathe, that you take a moment to let the grass hit your feet, that you let the sun hit your face, that you take a moment to be still, because there's so much coming at you. And I know that I think I say the same thing probably every week, but it's the truth. I mean, it's just so much information, and sometimes it's like overload. So I hope that you are giving yourself space to disconnect, space to not communicate, space to actually laugh, space to dance, and just enjoy yourself, because all of those things can contribute to peace, and you deserve peace. You don't have to try to figure out everything right then. Sometimes you can let things sit for a moment and move through them. Give yourself the grace to know the difference, so that you're not always trying to rush through everything. You're not always trying to know everything. You're not trying to speak to everything. In the middle of all of chaos, there still has to be moments of peace and joy. And I really pray that you find that. And then leading into my next point, I think my next prayer for you is joy. I do. I want you to find joy. It is so easy, like I said, to get bogged down in all of the noise, but you still have to have moments of joy. And I hope you find it. I had some this past weekend. I got a chance to spend time with my love and his family and friends and my family, and just spend some joyful moments laughing, playing Uno, eating popcorn, and listening to children laugh, and just finding the simple joys of even sleeping, being able to give your body rest, because there is joy in a nap. I don't care what anybody says. A nap is joyful. I want you to find those moments of joy, or dancing in the street. That is joy. Don't let anything or anyone rob you of your joy. You need your joy. Your joy is going to help you be able to create moments that are going to help you be able to sustain yourself when it feels so hard that you don't know what to do. Find joy. I pray that you give yourself that. So yes, I am praying for you so far to have peace and to have joy. And I am going to wrap up my prayer this week with abundance. I always like to stand on abundance because I'm always going to want you to be financially abundant, but I do at the same time want you to be abundant in your spirit. And I've talked about this many times because it always is one of the most important things to me, but especially in times where it can be very challenging and stressful, it is very important to be able to dial inside of yourself to recognize that you are abundant, that no matter what it looks like, no matter what someone is saying about you, what you are feeling about yourself in this particular moment of time, as long as there is breath in your body, you are still abundant. You still have the ability to attract wealth and happiness on all sides of you. Don't ever give up on you. And when I say that, I'm saying that because you are abundant. You are abundant with the light of God. You are abundant with love. You are abundant with joy. You are abundant, and you deserve all of the things. And you have to make sure that you have a mindset of understanding who you are and what you are. Don't ever let the world make you feel less than, because the world will do that. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, again, I don't even need to rehash it all. There's so much, but don't ever forget who you are in yourself, who you are in God. And remember, you are abundant. As long as there is breath in your body, there is still purpose. There is still opportunity, and you are deserving of good things. So don't forget that. So those are my prayers for you this week. I am recording actually on Friday, September the 19th. Yes, I almost forgot that it was like the 19th. That's why I had a little extra enunciation there. Excuse me. I'm very glad to be back. I skipped last week because, like I said earlier, I was away traveling with my love and friends and family, and I had a wonderful time. There is nothing like just letting the sun hit your face, nothing like letting children laugh, nothing like being surrounded in love, eating good food, because yes, I ate good food, and I was happy and overjoyed. But at the same time, I missed y'all, and I'm really grateful to be back, and I want to thank everybody for your support, and I hope y'all are all right. Like I said, I hope you went out and touched some grass. I hope you went out and let the sun hit your face, and I hope you do that again, because again, it's all about finding moments of joy. But I'm back. And I'm really excited about talking to you guys, because this has kind of been something that has been on my heart for a little bit. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you because I think it's very important, especially now. One thing that I am observing is that, there is a very big disconnect, I feel like, in reference to how we pull and pour into each other in community. And when I say that, I'm not saying it in a sense like, we're not looking out for each other, even though I do think that we're not looking out for each other. I'm saying it in a sense of, how we pull back in community. And really, I wanted to talk about it because I think it's very important that in these days and times that we are in, that we have to understand that everybody has not grown up in the same ways that we have. Everybody didn't come from the model home. Everybody didn't have two parents. Everybody didn't, do the things that some of us have done in our lives, and we're very fortunate. There are some people who have really gone through situations where they really had to get it out the mud and their parents were just doing the very best they could, even though they may have been struggling with their own trauma. And the reason I'm talking about this is because, recently I had an opportunity to speak with a young man who was struggling. And when I say that he's struggling with himself, trying to find his path forward and trying to figure out how he wants to navigate his life. And he's made some mistakes and had some hard luck, but he really wants to move forward. But from listening to him, you can tell that some of the things that he's endured as a young man has really been hard. Not growing up in a situation where he was supported by two parents and, he just didn't have that foundation, that solid foundation that a lot of people have had, but a lot of people have not. And he hasn't had that guidance, from people. And when I talk about guidance, I'm talking about people who just want to help you. They just want to see you win. There's no ulterior motive. There's no questions. There's no judgment. It's just, how can I help you? And we all know that those are very rare because it's very easy for us to judge in this society, in this world, in this life. I mean, we're human and that's not a judgment in itself. It's just an honest statement. And so for me, from having this conversation, I was inspired by this episode and how I want to obviously assist this young man and give him some encouragement and support as he's trying to navigate some things. And I wanted to talk about it because I think what I'm learning is that it is very important, especially for my generation, Generation X. We are the older generation now. Obviously, we have the boomers, but you have to think about it. Boomers are transitioning. They've done their time. They helped raise us. They created us. But now it is us as Gen X who are older and who have more experience and seen things. And so it becomes important for us to take, the hand of the millennials. It takes more important for us, not even just the millennials, because the millennials are right along step with us, even though they're slightly younger. And then Gen Z behind. And then I think about the next generation that's coming behind. We have to think about it. We have to become those people who are like the griots. The griots are the storytellers. That's what it is. And in Africa, the griots, the storytellers, the keepers of the stories, the generational truth tellers. And I think it becomes important for us to become those people. And I think that's something that a lot of us have not at this particular point kind of grasped, but I think it's time that we grasp it. And so, like I said, I wanted to talk about it because I think it is very important to make sure that we are understanding the call that we are facing. It's time for us to recognize that in our lives, especially my generation, Gen X, I'm going to keep hitting that up just to remind everybody, we are building lives, we are building homes and communities that our parents could only dream of. And we are called to extend those spaces beyond our four walls. So I never really do this in advance, but I kind of want to make sure I tee it up so that there's no really confusion about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about creating spaces for people that didn't have them. Because I think that is something I know that I feel the call to do. And I think many of you may be feeling that call. And especially if you're watching things unfold and shape and shift, and especially if you have younger people in your lives and you see how they are going through, I think even the call starts to come in your heart then, because you see them making steps and decisions that are going to lead them into hard places. And, of course, they're independent thinkers, very independent thinkers, and they want to do what they want to do, and they want to make all the decisions, and they want to show people that they understand the right path forward when they don't really understand the right path forward. And, as our generation, we are not the people to tell you what to do like our parents used to do, because, your parents used to always argue with you and tell you what to do, and we still didn't listen to them. But now it's like, okay, you're not going to listen to me, and I'm frustrated that you're not going to listen to me, and I need you to listen to me, but I don't know how to communicate to you. So I think what I'm really trying to do is like, let's try to build a gap. Let's try to bridge the gap. Let's try to learn how to open ourselves up to creating the spaces that our younger generation needs, because it's healing to them and it's healing to us. So let's kind of dive in so we can talk about what that means and what that looks like. So let's set the context. Like I mentioned to you earlier, we are building communities and coming from homes where we weren't getting everything that we need. Some of us weren't. And because I'm not going to pretend, I'm going to sit up in here and not act like I didn't come from a loving environment. I had two very beautiful parents, very important. I'm very blessed by that. My parents really poured into us, their children. And I'm very, very grateful. But they both came from situations that were traumatic. And I think a lot of us need to understand that our parents were doing the very best that they can with the burdens that they were carrying. And many of those burdens were trauma, frustration, or based on survival mode responses. Because we have to think about it a lot of times, especially I think about from my family. My parents were operating from, I think, a place of frustration sometimes and trauma. And really, I'm very grateful because the way that my parents addressed us, they never tried to really inflict their trauma on us. And when I say that in a sense of not like in a physical way, because my parents were never in situations where they were physically abused. But I think about my father. He grew up with just by his mother. She raised him and his brothers as a single mom, and she did the best she could. I think about my mom. My mom was raised in a 2-parent household, but for a very large period of time, like about a year, her mother was in the hospital, my grandmother, because she had gotten burned over 70% of her body and spent a year in the hospital. And so she spent a lot of time, raising her siblings. There were times my mom would tell us that she couldn't go to school because she had to make sure that the crops were put in. She couldn't go to college because that was not something that my grandfather at that time could envision for her. He couldn't afford it either. And so he was not able to allow her to have that. There were moments where she saw him in a state where he was, abusive. And those situations created tension and animosity, obviously, in her life growing up. And again, my grandparents were amazing people. They were the victims of their situations, and I think about my grandmother, my father's mother, same situation. She's doing the best that she can with what she had, but they raised them all with love. And I'm very grateful that my parents made decisions to say that we are going to raise you with some of the foundational principles of what we experience, but we are going to do it different. And I think a lot of times what we forget is that our parents are in some instances trying to do it different too. It's very easy for us to be in situations where we feel like we are, dealing in households of complete frustration or survival mode because, sometimes it is. It's like the house is full with love, but there's also this tension. It's like you're walking on eggshells, or the discipline is rooted in fear rather than communication. A lot of times people just want to fear you to death into being able to have conversations about choices and consequences. And, parents' expectations of shaping us into what they thought we should be versus who we thought we should be. And sometimes that creates a battle. I know for myself, I have battled back with my parents about that growing up. And even as a smaller child, because I was very bored at one point in school when I was younger, much younger. And I used to act out in school and trying to get my parents to understand that, yes, you feel this way about me, but I don't feel this way about me. And so I think sometimes we have to understand that, again, people are doing the best that they can with what they have, and that not everybody grew up in a home where they could be free, where they could speak clearly, where they could communicate emotion, where you could have rational dialogue and actually talk to your parents and have them receive feedback in a way that may not be complimentary and still be able to love you without trying to beat you, because let's just be honest, some of us have gotten beatings before. I've been beat before, but like my parents didn't do that a lot. They used to talk to us, and especially my dad, he would lecture us, and his lectures were just so hardcore. Like he knew how to hit all the emotional points. So we'd be boo-hooing because you just didn't want to let your parents down. And so I feel blessed that I grew up in that kind of situation. I grew up in the kind of situation where my parents raised my sister and I to talk to them directly, even if it was about something that they did that offended us. we were free to be able to give our opinion, because it was very important for our parents that they help raise us to be able to speak up and to be direct and to be able to look people in the eye, even if your voice shakes, so that you could clearly communicate your feelings. And I'm very grateful for that. But I also understand that not everybody had that situation. And so I'm really trying to lay this foundation, because I really am hoping that you are sitting here as you're listening, thinking about how you grew up and how you have shifted and turned, especially if you're a parent now, and how you navigate your children versus how you were raised. And I'm doing that because I want you to understand again how the shifts can happen. And then for other people as well who may not have had that supportive system, you didn't have that two-parent situation or what have you, but you are in that kind of situation right now, again, thinking about how the shifts, how the changes happen. Because it's very important as we're shifting that we recognize that we are very lucky to have made it through the way that we have, and how we were in a time of growing up where life wasn't as complex as we are living in now. And we've also recognized, I think, with lots of conversation, lots of healing, lots of growth, we don't have to repeat the cycles that we endured. But then if I look at now, this new generation, and again, I must preface this by clearly saying, obviously, I am not a parent. I'm just a student of the game, I guess, an observer of it all, that I feel like we are seeing how today's generation is shifting. I mean, again, you see that now our children or loved ones feel safe to communicate without judgment, where many of us did not. We are prioritizing more of a nurture and emotional support over control and dominance. We are allowing space for individuality and growth. We have to think about that, because in this nurturing, beautiful space that we are creating, it allows our children to be able to really have an opportunity, or our younger generation, to really have the opportunity to develop some really beautiful life skills that are going to serve them as they move forward. And we have to think about how those skills are definitely going to be essential as they go forward when they are reinforced. But we also have to think about, for those of you that are changing the patterns, those of you that are doing something different, how brave it is to break those patterns. Because let's not lie, everybody doesn't always understand how people raise their families or how they do things in their households. Everybody was different. I mean, my parents, when I think about it, like I said, our parents always raised us to be very free thinkers, very free speakers in our own home. But when they always made it a point to say, what we do in our home is what we do in our home. What they do in their home is what they do. So we don't overlap the two. And so it's like you learn how to, I hate to say, kind of code switch in life, because that was what was necessary during the times, or I guess when I grew up, that in order for you to be able to move through life without too much challenge, you had to learn how to keep that in. Because I guess for myself, I'm a 70s baby. I've told you guys before, I was born in 73. So growing up for me, I'm growing up as we are really literally just like coming into like full actualization of civil rights, like, the Civil Rights Acts of 1965, 68. I'm very honest to say that to people, if I think I don't even have to think about it, excuse me. I am the first one of my parents' children that was born with all of their civil rights actualized intact. But growing up in the 70s and going to school in the 70s was definitely different. My parents spent a lot of time at the schoolhouse because of the way that we were raised. And so there was always, judgment. And so it takes a lot of bravery to be willing to push the norm, not to, keep people subservient. My parents didn't treat me like that. And believe me, it used to bite them in the butt, because they would have to go back to school all the time because the teacher would call my parents in telling them that, hey, Pamela's come to school and told us that she's going to be moving. I don't have to listen to you because you don't respect anything I say. You don't believe Yeah, because I was going back. But that's a whole nother thing. I was more talkative back then. I guess I was a little too free. But my parents navigated that because their main goal was I need to make sure that I'm raising a strong daughter. And if my daughter feels like something is not right, even though I don't want her to act that way, and tell you everything, I want her to be confident in who she is. And so I wanted to make sure that I highlight that because I feel like for everybody out here who's going against the grain, it takes a lot of bravery to do that. It takes a lot of bravery because it's easy to fall lockstep and you are like, no, I want better. And so you are creating these beautiful spaces for your children, for your family, where people are free, where you're creating nurture and support, where your children can feel loved and valued and communicate with you. And your children have the potential to thrive out here in a world that is a lot. That's the simplest way I can say it right now, a lot, because sometimes I have no words for what's going on. But then now they're out in the world, and now you're out in the world. And now it's time to start talking about how do you extend the space beyond the home? Because again, like I said, and I'm just going to maybe keep it just for me, I feel like it's my responsibility now to make sure that when I encounter young people who are struggling, that I talk to them, that I pour into them. And I mean, let's be honest, the world is very different. I mean, everything happening in the world, there's political unrest, racial injustice, violence, mental health crises. People need safe, solid community more than ever. And I know for myself, I'm always on here telling y'all, if there is not a time, the time is now. If there never was a time before, the time is now for you to figure out your community. If you don't have one, to seek some. Like it's very important to have community. Community is essential. You need people that you can trust. You need people who are solid and thorough. And we can't afford to stay siloed anymore. God didn't bless us to get this far with wisdom, healing, and growth just to keep it within our household. And a lot of us are in this position where we're isolating our gifts and where we're leaving gaps. And those gaps are potential spots where hopelessness and cycles of struggle can continue. Because like I said, I had an opportunity to talk to this young man, and he's in his mid-20s, and he's very nice. He's made some mistakes, and he's struggling with his mistakes, and he feels like there's no way out. And his emotional state, I'll be honest, it frightened me a little. I don't like seeing young people so weighted down. I remember what it was like to be 25, and it is a crazy time because there's so many emotions. Like you're just becoming an adult and you have so many responsibilities coming at you, but it is also a beautiful time. It's an opportunity where you are going to make beautiful memories with people, where you could possibly fall in love. You can see the world. You can do the things that you want to do. That is what the 20s are about, or that's what they say. The 20s and the 30s and 40s are when you settle, the 50s are when you get ready to retire, all that fantastical stuff. It's just not true. But there is this opportunity of freedom in the 20s. As they say, 20s is the time when you make the mistakes. The thing is, though, I'm seeing that there's entirely too many people in the 20s who are making mistakes and staying in the mistakes. And I think a lot of times that is because, again, they don't have people to pull them up. They don't have people to help them figure out how to navigate it. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of these people don't want to disappoint the ones that they love by showing them that they're struggling. And I think that's why you see so many people struggling with mental illness and stress and depression, because they don't feel like there's a way out because they're scared to say something. And then sometimes I see young people on social media, just like, they wish that they had some of the older generation to talk to about all different types of things. I've seen people ask for information about, marriage, love, money, all these things. It's just that people don't have a place to go. Because again, we have to understand, kind of bringing it back to really what this is about initially, is that not everybody had the space that you had. Not everybody has that relationship with their family where they can go back and talk to them and they can be poured into. And it is a problem and it is an issue. And I feel like I said earlier, it is our responsibility to pull back, because I think many of these young people, like I said, are navigating life without guidance, and they are piecing their life together from social media or friends who are just as lost as they are. I mean, and that is no shade to anyone who's a little bit younger listening to this, but it is so true. Y'all trying to find yourself through somebody else who's lost. And two people who are lost are not going to be able to find the path to go. So they need our wisdom. They need our transparency. They need our honesty, and they need our support. And they deserve it. They deserve it because they are our future. They're our future. And we need to share with them about life's struggles, failures, and lessons. And I'm not saying that we got to sugarcoat it for them, because I don't think they're looking for sugarcoating. I know when I spoke with that young man, I didn't sugarcoat it for him. I said, I'm happy to pull some information to help you try to find some resource to help you navigate through some things. But I'm not going to pretend and sit up here and say that this is going to be a magic bullet. It's not. I was explaining to him, like, there's going to have to be a path, and you're going to have to figure out what that path is going to be. But I want you to understand you're not on that path alone. And I think a lot of times we forget that that's what they need. They don't necessarily need us to come in with the cape and fix it. Y'all know what I was going to say, with the cape. We don't need to put the cape on. We don't need to always come in and fix it. We need to give them the path to fix it. And we need to show them that resilience is possible. And that setbacks don't equal the end, because a lot of times people are only able to see life in like a 30, 60, 90-day purview, I'm learning. And it's funny, I think for us, as we're older, that's really hard, because I know for myself, I can't think that way. If I make a decision, I'm thinking much further. I'm thinking how the impact of this decision will impact me 60, 90 days, 120 days, years from now, because it is very possible that one decision can impact your life for decades, and you don't understand the weight of that. And maybe it's because of their youth. They're not, they don't fully understand it. So they need us to kind of explain it and help guide them. But we don't need to boss or control them. They just need some guidance. And I think sometimes our testimony is the seed that keeps somebody from giving up, because when I was talking to that young man, he was like, I feel like I want to give up. And he was like, I really appreciate you taking some time to pour into me and help me. Like, I had just met him. We had talked before, but not like met physically, and I got a chance to meet physically, and it just came out, and I didn't know he was struggling until that moment. So I just want to make sure I paint that context. So it's not like it's somebody I know, it's somebody I didn't really know, but I'm getting to know. And so I was like, who am I to act like I don't see what this young man is going through? Because I think a lot of us can see it. We can understand. We know when people are struggling. We have to seize those moments. We have to take accountability for our youth. We have to take accountability for ourselves and understand that God didn't bring us this far. He didn't let us get through so that we would just keep it to ourselves. He let us get through so that we could be a light and a beacon to somebody else behind us. So you know what, y'all, especially my age group, it's time for us to be the beacon. It's time for us to take accountability for our community and building a community. So when I'm talking about that, like I said, I really want to make sure that we understand that we have to be willing to pour into others, because God has placed that opportunity into us. And obviously keeping it biblical, because every once in a while I like to do that. It's very important. You can go Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, because growth is happening together, not in isolation. So I wanted us to talk about it because I think it's time for us to figure out what we want to do and who we want to be, and start to pull back so that everybody can move forward, because that's our responsibility. And so one thing that I want to offer you is like some practical encouragement, just something to think about. I want you guys to think about someone in your life this week that you can check in on. Seriously, think about it. And even better if it's a young person that you've come in contact with who you know is struggling, because I hate to say it, I think we all know somebody. And I want you to reach out to them. I want you to share a word of guidance or encouragement. Because I think one thing that we have to remember is that creating space, creating community, it doesn't always mean big gestures. Sometimes it's just taking a moment to be present. It's listening or even sending a simple text message. I mean, they love text messages. I like text messages. Send a text message. Just check in, because you never know how that message will be received, what that person is going through in that moment, and it will help them. It will help you, because creating spaces for other people, I think, is a part, like I said, of God's plan for us. I think it's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to create community. We're supposed to, create spaces for people. It's how we save people. It's how we restore hope. It's how we rewrite generational stories, because every story doesn't have to end the same way. And so I wanted to make sure, like I said, that we kind of start to build toward that, because we do have to understand that a lot of times when we are trying to create spaces, especially for those of us that have been through situations where they weren't the most ideal situations, we are not always who we are raised to be. And let me say that again. We are not always who we were raised to be. And you know what? That's okay. Because I think one thing that we have to understand is we are growing and starting to heal and get better and create spaces and community for our family and friends and for people that we're going to pull forward with us. We have to remember that, like I said earlier, our parents were doing the best that they could with what they had, and they are carrying their inherited habits and traumas with them, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And it's not an immediate process. Breaking cycles takes time, and that's okay. And you have to even ask yourself, as someone who is trying to create spaces, where have you maybe creating cycles or repeating cycles that no longer serve the person that you are right now? And where are you already creating new spaces of healing for yourself and other people? Because, baby, we are the authors of our lives. We have the pen in our hands right now. And it is time for us to choose to design lives and community that align with purpose, not guilt or fear. And so this is our opportunity to say, you know what? I'm choosing peace over performance. I'm creating boundaries that protect, not punish. I'm going to share my story as a testimony to help inspire and guide others. We don't have to stay stuck. Because again, we're not just creating safe homes, we're creating safe paths for others to walk in as well. Because we know that we are better together. And that is so important for us to remember. Because this is a season of us learning how to live out loud. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, because I want to make sure I hone it in. It's not about perfection anymore. It needs to be about intention. At home, we need to be focused on, building spaces that are rooted in safety and nurture. But when we are reaching out to other people, we also need to be encouraging and guiding and offering mentorship to someone who may need our wisdom. We don't have to sit all in anymore. We have capacity to be able to open up ourselves to other people, because we're recognizing that we are not how we were raised, that we are creating other spaces, and that when we see someone who is challenged and struggling, we'll take their hand and help support them so that they can be the best versions of themselves too, because that is what God called us to do. Remember Jeremiah 29:11. For God said, I know the plans I have for you. Understand that is God's plans extend to both our lives, our personal lives, and the people he places in our path. So when you have someone in your path that comes to you, because it happens all the time, we meet someone and we see someone, we connect with someone, and we see that they're struggling. That is our opportunity to pour, because God obviously feels that there is enough within you even though you might not always recognize it, that can bless somebody else, that can help encourage somebody else. And we have to pull our youth. They need us. We need them. And it's time for us to share our stories, because our stories are healing. Our stories are encouraging and inspiring. And our stories are chain breakers. And you are a chain breaker. So that is my episode this week. I want to thank you for listening. And like I said, I want to make sure that we understand that here, this situation about creating homes and creating spaces for what people didn't have, we are honoring where we came from without staying stuck there. For those of us that struggled, we're choosing nurture and safety and love as our new legacy. But we are learning how to extend that legacy outward and sharing wisdom with those who need it, because there are a lot of people that need it. So I want to leave you with like a little journaling affirmation type of prompt, because I know that it can take, like I said, it takes a lot of bravery to stand out here on your story and to try to pull somebody in. I want you to remember this one thing and say it to yourself until you feel it and believe it deep. I am free to create safe, nurturing spaces for myself, my loved ones, and my community. My story has value, and my wisdom is meant to be shared. It's time to stop being siloed. Again, remember, this is my invitation, my clarion call to you to ask yourselves, who in your life needs the space you can create? And I want you to reach out and connect with them, like I said, via a little text message, a little note, whatever, and start to pour into them, because it's good, it's cathartic for you, and it's healing for them. So I want to close with a quick blessing. May God guide us to be brave authors of lives that uplift, protect, and inspire. So thank you again, like I said, for listening this week. I hope that you all will take this as an inspiration to go out there and create the spaces that you didn't have for someone else, to honor all the spaces that you are creating right now and the bravery that it takes to live in your truth and your story, because our youth need it. We need it, and we need you, and you are too valuable to be siloed anymore. So I hope that, again, like I said, it will inspire you. Please like, share, and subscribe. I will have all of my contact information in the show note. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I want to support you on your journey as well. And I'll come back and talk to you guys about, how that young man is doing. I'm kind of sending him notes and checking in, trying not to be overbearing, because child has type A personality. But I want to make sure that I support him and encourage him, because I don't want him to give up on him, because I'm not going to give up on him. And so I hope that you will find someone and create space as well, and encourage and support, because we need each other. Now more than ever, we need each other. So I want to thank you. I hope that you find some peace this weekend, that you find some joy, some laughter, and some love. I'll be back next week, I believe, with another episode. I feel good. I think we're on a roll again. And I will talk to you soon. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.